Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you already know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. That's because when I get up in the morning, I make it that way. I decide before my feet hit the ground, it's going to be a groovy day, and guess what? My day is pretty groovy. I have a groovy life, and something might happen, something might change. I always just think back, and I can switch to turn it around, and whatever happens, I go with the flow, or I decide how I want to view it. And we're going to learn more about that on today's show. I'm going to guarantee you today's show is going to be high energy. So find a nice place to sit, kick back, or you might even want to stand because we're going to be relaying some really cool information. It's also a groovy day because it's Life Mastery Radio Day. Yay, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. And as always, I have my lovely co-host flying with me today. Or are we flying, Jackie? Or are we? I guess we are. We're out there on the airwaves.
We are. Yeah, hi everybody. It's great to be back. I took a week off last week. We had special co-host. That was awesome. Thanks, Allie.
Oh, for last week, yeah. But you knocked a hole in. How do you want to say that? You knocked another thing off your bucket list.
Huge box checked. Absolutely.
TEDx speaker extraordinaire.
Now a TEDx speaker. It's been a goal for a long time. We're going to talk about goals a little bit today, I think. But being a TEDx speaker is a goal for a long time, except that I really hadn't taken steps to get there. Felt like, well, I'm not quite sure what to do. But in February of this year, I met Frank King. Frank King is the record holder of TEDx speeches, and he saw me speak at an event. So he approached me and said, "Holy beep, you need to get on the TEDx stage."
That's cool.
And so he helped me. He was my mentor and got me on this particular one, and it was really awesome. And I got on my first application. A lot of people that try for years and they don't get in. So I'm really blessed that I got in as quickly as I did. And this was a great location in San Diego, California, and stayed with some friends there, had a good time, and delivered the speech that I've been preparing my whole life to give. Finally got to do that.
Very compelling speech. I had the opportunity to watch a preliminary version, and I was quite impressed, and I can imagine. So did you get any feedback? Were you able to interact with the audience afterwards?
Yeah, some people were crying during the presentation.
I would imagine.
And there were probably 4 or 5 speakers after me, so I didn't get to necessarily talk with audience members until the entire thing was over. But then people that did approach me were very grateful for my message and opened their eyes to some new things and helped them to feel some things they haven't felt for a long time, and gave them greater understanding about people they know and the things that they go through. So all around, it had an effect. And that's
a great speech. It's about forgiveness. And stay tuned to our Facebook page, because I'm sure once they put it up it's going to be on YouTube, right, Jackie?
Yep.
We'll put the link up there, and you will be moved by this speech. I was kind of curious, Jackie. Now, I know you've delivered speeches like this about this topic on numerous occasions, but not quite this intense, maybe. Did it have some healing aspect for you again to re-release it?
Oh, it always does.
Yeah.
And that's part of my message and mission is every time I speak about the abuse that I suffered as a child, it heals me a little bit more.
Mhm.
And that's what I try to tell people, is that my healing began and continues because of my voice, using my voice to tell my story and my experience, and that's the way they heal as well, is by starting to share it. Get your voice out there, break the silence, and start telling people. And that's the healing effects it will give you.
Yeah, it's very moving speech. Stay tuned, Life Mastery Radio with Todd and Jackie. That link will be on our Facebook page, and we for sure talk about it some more. So stay tuned to that. I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.com. You can go there. We have a link to our guest already, and any other links that we talk about will be posted right on that show page on www.lifemasteryradio.com. Both Jackie and I's book is there. You can sign up for our newsletter. Jackie creates a newsletter every week, and it talks about who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and of course, her famous blog post about the guests that we just had on the show. So you can stay informed, all things Life Mastery Radio. Okay, you ready for the show? High energy. Here we go. Pump yourself up.
Whoop, whoop.
Our guest today is Jonathan England. And Jonathan is an earth shaker, a guide to the highest levels of purpose and source alignment, a beach slacker turned hugely successful real estate investor and an acclaimed author, and the creator of an entirely self-sustained, conscious-driven living complex in Costa Rica. The earth-walking eco village is carved from tropical lushness where people live by spirit and alignment in service to each other and the greater whole around a central, prosperous economy. Residents take 100% responsibility of their thoughts, feelings, and actions and reality while working in harmony with nature and each other. Jonathan's fascinating journey is revealed in his best-selling book, If I Die Before I Wake, where he tracks down his own growth through the 5 levels of consciousness: disoriented, goal-oriented, journey-oriented, value-oriented, and soul-oriented. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Well, we'll see where spirit guides us. It's going to come out of us. Any way it can, I'm sure. Jonathan, welcome to the show today, my friend. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, we are excited and delighted that you came to talk to us and be interviewed, and for all 3 of us to be able to create some great content to throw out there into the world. That's why we're here.
Yeah,
We
I'm
don't
excited.
often get guests from Costa Rica, so that's what's exciting.
Jackie's a sun worshiper and she lives in Washington State. Those two are kind of contradicting.
Got a lot of sun. I'm 10 minutes away from the beach, but there's sun. We're only less than 10 degrees away from the equator, so the sun's pretty strong down here. You got to get used to it.
Yeah.
It's not hot, but you'll get burnt pretty quick and not even realize it.
Well, tell us a little bit about your book. Maybe we should start out with your background. You were a beach bum, I guess, and inspired to inspire others. Maybe fill us in a little bit on how that all worked.
Yeah, so how I was a broke, ignorant, blackout, drunk, atheist beach bum. How I got there was when I was 12 years old. I had an older brother who had muscular dystrophy, which is a terminal disease. So
Yeah.
I was always aware that he was going to die young. So I was doing my best to prepare for that, but there's no way to prepare for your older brother dying. But it was when I was 12, he was 16. He died. I was holding his hand and I watched him take his last breath, and my world altered in that moment. Because kind of one of the main reasons, because I'd kind of built an identity around. So we all have these false identities that who we think that we're supposed to be, how we're trying to figure out what makes us valuable, what makes us worthy of love. So mine was like, I was like my brother's hero. Now he didn't really need a hero. He was always good. He had a good inner state. His outer state was not so great. He couldn't take care of himself, couldn't feed himself, but he couldn't walk. But his inner state was always legit. Like he was there. So, but anyway, it's like all my my whole life, like who I knew myself as was my brother's protector. And now here he is, he's gone. And I'm like, well, what the heck? What am I here for? Who am I? And I decided that evening. I didn't know, it wasn't a conscious decision, it was subconscious, but it altered every aspect of my reality, because I decided, well, one, life is meaningless, because how could there be any meaning to life if my brother didn't even really get to have one? He was stuck in a wheelchair and he dies at 16. So life is meaningless, obviously. There's no God, because if there was God, then either there's something wrong with God or something wrong with me and my family. So I'm not cool with either one of those. So I'm just going to claim there's no God. And then third is I failed love, because I kind of felt like my parents got divorced when I was very young, because life is just kind of difficult for most people, mainly. And, that's just the way the world is, or was.
Easy to do, right?
Yeah, it's just people just trying to survive. And then you got a son that, my parents are looking, but he's going to die, and they don't know what to do. And it's just so overwhelming. And so they get divorced because it was just too much to bear on top of life. And, but so subconsciously, I kind of had this feeling that if I could just save my brother, I could save my family. And I wasn't able to save my brother, which means I wasn't able to save my family, which means I had failed love inside of my, this reality that I'd created unknowingly. And so everything it was just hopeless at that point. And I spiraled into the darkness. And again, I became a broke, ignorant, blackout, drunk, atheist, beach bum. And that lasted until, have you ever noticed in life when it's time to get a lesson, trying to get a message, trying to shift to a new path, it starts out with a feather stroke. And most of the time we don't take the feather stroke. We don't listen, like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And then comes the nudge, and like, hey, I think you should do something different. And then most of the time we still don't take that, or especially me, I was a stubborn fella. So, and then comes the shove. And then if we still don't get it, then the 2x4. If we still don't get it, it's the cosmic 2x4 with the spikes in it, just wipes your entire life out from underneath you. So are you all the cosmic 2x4 type, or are you feather strokes? Where are you at? Which one does it usually take for you to make the shift?
Been down that road and I had chunks of concrete thrown at me.
Okay. Yeah, so I was the cosmic 2x4 kind of guy, and I was asking for it. Give it to me. Now I'm the feather stroke. I'm like, ooh, that tickles. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I guess give me the feather stroke. Just tickle me into a new path. That's completely cool with me now. But so I had plenty of 2x4s before, January 1st, 12:15, like 15 minutes after New Year's, I got pulled over while I was blackout drunk driving, and got a DUI. That didn't stop me. So then August 24th of that same year, I was blackout drunk driving again, not knowing it, until all of a sudden I came to, and I'm like, where am I? What just happened? And I realized I had just rear-ended a car at a stoplight. And there was once I realized, I put my truck in reverse, and I tried to take off down the road, and was trying to escape the scene, but there was a police officer that was sitting at the stoplight that I'd just done that at. So
for a reason.
Yeah. So in my old world mentality, oh, poor me, imagine that's just my luck, but the victim mentality, just my luck. But on the other side of it, I realized, thank God for that police officer. Thank God, that was grace sitting at that stoplight right there, because that police officer pulled me over, took me to jail, and I sat in jail, and I could no longer run. I could no longer hide. I could no longer numb. And I was just me and me stuck there. And August 24th just happened to be my mother's birthday as well. So you get one phone call. The only person I knew to call was my mom. And so it was just a shame. I just felt all the shame, all the guilt. Nobody got hurt in the accident, but they could have. And it was just like, John, you could have killed somebody. I'm like, I'm hearing inside of my head, just beating myself up so hard. I was like, yeah, I know I could have killed somebody. I know, like, you're an idiot, John. You're an idiot. I know. You got to do something different, John. I'm like, yes, I know. John, listen, you could have killed somebody. I'm like, yes, I got that. And it kept saying it. You could have killed somebody. You could have killed somebody. I'm like, I know. And then finally I heard what it was actually saying something to me. And the message was trying to come through was, and this was the message that, because the feather strokes, the nudges, the shoves, the 2x4s, all this was to get this one message into me. And what I finally heard was, John, you could have killed someone. I'm like, yes, I know. And then I was like, wait a minute. And then once I paused for a moment to let the message start to come in, then the voice says, if one of your actions could hurt somebody, what could another one of your actions do, John? Like, well, they could help somebody. Right. And so then it was like, so if your actions could hurt somebody or help somebody, that means your actions matter, correct? I'm like, yes, my actions matter. And if your actions matter, then that actually means that you matter. Like, I guess that's true. Yes, I guess that I matter. So maybe I do matter. And if I matter, then maybe life's not meaningless. Maybe there is a meaning. And maybe the meaning is to actually matter, but consciously, actually make decisions that could positively impact people. So in that moment, that's when I decided. I said, never again will one of my actions hurt somebody. From this moment forward, conscious decision is my actions are going to help people. And that what I just described to you was in my book, The 5 Levels of Consciousness. That was me leaving level 1 and going into level 2. Level 1 is the victim mentality. It's disoriented. You don't know where you're going. You're just like a pinball getting bounced around. I'm playing my hand of cards the best I can, but I got dealt a crappy hand, so it's the best that I can do.
Right.
That's that mentality. So I just explained to you the shift, what happened for me, how I got deep into level 1, victim mentality, disoriented, was my brother dying, but how I came out into level 2 was I made a new decision.
And what were those decisions? What did you first start out doing? Was it an exploration of who you were and what you could do? Was that how that went?
It wasn't like that. So the decision was my actions are going to help people. And so once I made the decision, now the actions that had to come from the new decision. So it started to then play out. But so then the question, okay, if my decisions matter and they're going to help people, how do I make decisions that help people? So then came the question. So I'm asking a new question because our questions are directing our focus. Our focus is directing our destiny. So now I'm focusing on how can I help people? And so the answer to that question that came up was, well, maybe you just need to build a family, John. Just build a family and just make them happy, give them a great life. And then maybe that will make you happy, and maybe that would make them happy. And then you can do good in this world. So, okay, well, I need to create a family. I'm like, well, how would I even give a family a good life? Because I'm a broke, ignorant, blackout, drunk, atheist beach bum. So how could I even do that? And I'm like, well, I guess I could maybe build a business or something and become really successful. So then, I can get a nice house and nobody has to work and we can go vacations all the time. Maybe that's what it is. And so that was the decision that I made. I'm going to build a family. I'm going to build a business. I'm going to make a bunch of money so that I can give them everything that they want, live a great life. And so then I'm like, well, how am I going to do that? And then one evening I was flipping channels on late one night, and there was an infomercial came on, and there's this little Italian guy named Dean Graziosi. He comes on TV and he says, have you ever in your adult life felt like you should be further along than you are right now? I'm like, yes. He's like, if I could give you this one thing that would change your life forever, would you want that thing? I'm like, yes. Yeah, you're talking to me. How do you know? And then he says, all right, now these aren't the words that he says, but this is what I heard. He says, all right, well, give me all your money. And I'm like, well, no, I don't, I don't have any money. So now what he was teaching was no money, no credit real estate investing. I'm like, well, I qualify for that. I don't have any money. I don't have any credit. So I qualify, but it was $10,000. I'm like, I don't have that. So now, if I could have had a conversation with him, I would have said, you're an idiot, man. You're selling no money, no credit real estate investing. Obviously, I can't buy it. If you'll give me the thing, then I'll go make the money. If
I'll pay you back.
Then I'll pay you back. That's logical, right? But if I would have said that to him, he would have said back to me, John, would you like to be where I am, or you do want me to be where you are? And I said, well, I would like to be where you are. And then he'd be like, okay, well, then you're going to have to believe what I believe, not what you believe. Okay, well, what is it that you believe that I don't believe? And he would say, well, I believe that you can come up with that money. You believe that? Okay, well, and I need to believe that I can come up with that money too. To get to where you are, I have to believe that I can come up with the money. He would say yes. That would have been the conversation. Now, right. Knowing Dean, because now I became in 2012, I became his top student. He was like the biggest real estate guru guy on the whole world. And I became his top student in 2012. Within 18 months, I'd made 400 grand, start with no money, no credit, no clue. And then within 2 years, I built a multi-million-dollar empire.
Wow.
So but the belief had to be shifted. It's always about shift. It's an inside job. It happens from the inside out. So you shift the belief, make the new decision. Now you've got a new identity, and then the actions come from the new identity, and then the reality starts to form around you. That's a reflection of who you believe yourself to be. Now, remember earlier, I believed myself to be someone who didn't matter, and somebody who thinks that they don't matter. What kind of actions did they take? Yeah. Well, they're broke, ignorant, blackout, drunk, atheist, beach bum. So that was my identity until in that moment sitting in jail, I realized that my decisions matter, which means I matter. And now I'm somebody who matters, who makes a difference. So I have new identity, which means new actions. And so that was my level 2 identity, as someone who matters, who the goal was to make my family happy. That was very naive back then. I didn't realize. I really thought you could make other people happy. I didn't know. I had no clue that if someone has decided to not be happy, there's nothing you can do about that. So anyway, that was quite a journey there.
Awesome. So then did you search for the family? Did you start creating your family and did that next step?
Yeah, I did. I found a girlfriend. I got me a girlfriend, and then we started growing a life together. She had, when I met her, she had 12-year-old twin boys. We were together for like 6 years. But it's like one. So that was actually first. The girlfriend came first, and then the business started to come out of that. Once I saw the guy on TV, and then I signed up for his program, and then I was all in. But it took me 6 months to do my first deal. So I say all in, but I was all in on learning. Getting ready to get ready. That's what most people do, is spend their lives getting ready to get ready. And that's what I was doing too, because my identity hadn't completely shifted yet. I became someone who believed that my actions matter, my decisions matter, but I hadn't embodied real estate investor yet. I was still, the beach bum, and trying to shift my identity. How that identity shifted was, so for those 6 months, there was a real estate investment club an hour and a half away. We didn't have one in our town, but there was one an hour and a half away. So when you start to shift your identity, if you can get yourself in a new environment that starts to reflect who you'd like to see yourself as, that's the fastest way to do it. So I was going once a month, all the way, is an hour and a half away, going there to this real estate investment club, but I was hiding in the corner. I'm like, they're going to find out I'm not a real estate investor. Now, I didn't know that they're cool with, they expect people that don't know what they're doing to show up there. They're to learn. They like teaching other people there. When you've most successful people, when they've succeeded, especially if they came from nothing and they came to something, they love to share the recipes. They love to share the story. They love to take somebody under their wing. So I wasn't aware of that, because I was living in the old world of competition, comparison, all that. So anyway, I was hiding in the corners, like, they're going to find out I'm here. But then I kept showing up, and people were like, hey, how you doing, John? And they were so kind to me. And I'm studying over, like, all the time. And I start to understand, like, about 3 months in, I'm like, I really get everything they're talking about here. Like, I really get this. About 4th month, I'm like, I really understand all they're talking. Like, I know what they're talking about. This is great. 5th month, I'm like, I could teach this. Like, really. Now, I haven't done anything yet, but I know it, right? I know it in my head. And so then on the 6th month, I show up, and I'm looking around. I'm like, all right, I could teach this stuff, and I'm just as smart as that guy, just as smart as her, just as smart as him. And that person over there, he's an idiot. And if he can do it, I can do it. Now, I'm not suggesting that's what you go out and do to shift your identity, but hey, it worked, right? I'm like, if he could do it, I can do it. And that's what shifted me. And that in that instant is when I became, on the inside, my identity shifted to, I'm a real estate investor. And
so basically you're saying it took you 6 months to own it.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. And now I made a new decision and a new identity. And then the next day I got my first deal. And now, just to let you know, over those 6 months, if you want to be a real estate investor, there's one thing that if you want to buy a house, there's one thing that you have to do. And that one thing is you have to put in an offer. So I didn't get any deals for 6 months. How many offers do you think that I put in on those 6 months?
Zero.
I got 0 deals, but I put in 0 offers. So what would a real estate investor do? Well, they'd be putting in offers, but I wasn't a real estate investor, so I wasn't taking the actions that a real estate investor would do. But then once my identity shifted, the very next day I put in my first offer and I got my first offer.
Right. You had the confidence. Yeah. You had the confidence and you owned who you had become. And that was the whole difference, right?
Yeah. And so I got that first deal under contract. Now I was going to do what was called wholesaling, which is you just get the property under contract, and then I was going to assign my equitable interest in the property. So basically I'm selling the contract, but I'm selling the equitable interest in the property, because it's got like $40,000 worth of margin in there, profit margin in there. And so I was just going to sell it for that margin for $5,000. But then I was like, you know what, if I could just find the money for this, I could make $30,000. I've done the numbers. I see that there's $30,000 in here. And my best year my entire life was $25,000 for working a whole year. I could do this in one deal.
One house.
And all I got to do is come up with the money, because see, I got this program and I didn't think I could come up with $10,000, but I did. And if I can come up with 10,000, why can't it? And this was like, I think it was like $45,000 for the property. I'm like, why can't I come up with 45,000? So see, I had my momentum of belief in my abilities is what started happening. And I'm like, I can do this. I started to believe. And once you believe, then you start to see. And so I got the money. It was my old boss. He loaned me the money to do this deal. And I wound up, I didn't make 30,000 like I thought I would. I only made 17,000. But then I was like, wait a minute, I just made $17,000 of one deal. This is crazy. And so then I got my second deal. I bought a house for $10,000, made $70,000 off my second deal. And suddenly I'm like, well, now it was weird, because I'm like, we do the wrong thing so long, the right thing feels wrong. And so
That's true.
So I've been broke and doing it the wrong way my whole life. Like, because my whole life I was taught, if you want to make more money, you got to work harder and work more hours. And now suddenly I'm working less hard and less hours, and $70,000 just shows up. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm like, either I did something wrong and I'm going to jail, or there's like a hidden camera kind of pop out somewhere and say, we're just kidding, it didn't really happen, you give us the money back. Like, it was weird. But then once it settled in, I'm like, no, that's real. And then after that, it was like, I just took off, and it's like 30 grand, 50 grand, 70 grand, 60 grand, 100 grand, and it was just, it just happened.
It's all about our belief system, right, Jonathan? It's because the only difference between $1 and $1 million is a bunch of zeros.
That's it. Yeah, that's all it is. I talk about like beginner's luck. All beginner's luck is you don't know you can't do it.
Exactly.
So
fascinating.
Yeah.
I heard on I kind of listened to some podcasts that you had done previously, and I heard you talk about this book, and I just kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit. Is you stated that this book flowed through you. Yeah. It didn't, it wasn't something you sat down for 2 weeks. I think you were on a 40-day fast, and bada boom, bada bang, there it was, and it just flowed through you. Maybe describe for us, and where'd that flow come from?
So it was in 2 weeks. It was done. The whole thing was completely done in 2 weeks. Like how the book is written, like that's how it came out. Somebody went in there and edited like the words, make sure it's all
organized it. Sure.
Yeah. But they didn't change the organization. It's like the same flow. They just made it actually, all the punctuation and everything was good. But it came out just like that. It is weird. Even when I go back and read or listen to it, I'm like, this is crazy. Like you'd swear I knew what I was doing the whole time. Like you would swear I knew the end from the beginning, but it's like, cause it all just lines up so perfectly. It's so wild. But the book is about these 5 levels of consciousness. Level 5 is it's the not my will, but thine be done. It's the surrender, where, it's kind of like you tap into a GPS system. You're driving around in your car, and your car's like, take a left. The GPS is like, take a left. And you're like, I don't know. I've been down this road. I know I can go straight. I've been here 100 times. I'm going to go straight. Then you go a couple hours down the road, and then there's a bridge out. You're like, oh man, I should have listened to the GPS, because see, you can't see the picture when you're inside of it. But we're tapped into something, like we're part of something that is outside of this limited perspective that we're sitting inside of. Mm-hmm. So you start listening within, seek first the kingdom, all else will be added to you. So that's what level 5 is all about. It's just like you drop from the head to the heart. It's the 18-inch journey from the mind through the emotions to the heart, from slavery to freedom, from Egypt to the promised land. So you're in the promised land, and then from the promised land, from the kingdom comes like the inspiration into formation. So the information that came out through this book was inspiration from the kingdom of God. And to birth God's kingdom here on earth, to establish God's kingdom here on earth. That's the purpose of the words. They're seeds that are sown into the garden to thy kingdom come.
You know, it's interesting that spiritual aspect comes up as the 5th chapter, right? Because for me, in my experience, I was on my knees. I was on my knees and had to give up and totally relinquish all of my power and understand that there was a power greater than myself before I could even take the next step.
Yeah, so there's in this journey, the 5 levels, there's awakenings in each journey. To transcend each level, there's an ending of the trance of each level, and usually it's some sort of existential crisis in a way. So the first awakening, because I got to the spiritual aspect, and everybody does in level 3. Like that's when, because level 2 is all about not thy will but mine be done. I'm going to set my goals. I'm a real goal getter, and I'm going to get it done no matter what. And because so you develop your clarity and your focus in level 2, because each of these levels you're developing a skill, an aspect of yourself, of your true self, so that you can be of service to the kingdom here on earth. And so you develop the ability to focus and stop caring what anybody else thinks. But then level 3 is the opposite. You unfocus in level 3. And so what happened and how I got to level 3 was I'm building my family. We got, making millions of dollars. We got the big house, they're going on vacation all the time. Yet for some reason, my family's getting more and more miserable. And I'm like, I don't get it. It's like the harder I try, the more I give everybody what they want, the more miserable they are. My girlfriend was taking 20 Oxycontin a day. Her boys were on drugs, punching each other in the face, punching holes in the walls. It's just crazy, just madness. And then my mom was on hospice, given less than a month to live. And so my mom's about to die, all this crazy stuff. And then there's one more thing, I won't go, but basically I took in my girlfriend's brother, brought him in. He had just gotten out of jail went to jail. He was a crack addict and he went to jail for stealing. And but he came out of jail and he's like, all right, I'm off of crack, but I need somebody to help me out. John, will you give me a hand up? I just need some help. I burned all my bridges. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. So I bring him in the middle of all this. And then he comes in within 2 weeks. He steals my credit card, charges thousands of dollars to it, steals all my tools, steals my truck. And I'm like, I give up. I failed. I laid down my head and I said, I can't do it. I failed. I'm a failure. But when I did that, suddenly, like as soon as I had my head laid down, I said the words, I failed. I'm a failure. I cannot do this. Suddenly, this like weight lifts off my shoulders, and it's like what just happened? And it's like I just felt like free, and it's like this phoenix started to emerge from a fire. And what happened in that moment was everything that I thought that I was supposed to be, everything that I thought that I had to be in order to be worthy, it all died because I couldn't be it. I couldn't be the good son. My mom's dying. I couldn't be the good husband. My girlfriend's on Oxycontin, like 20 Oxycontin a day. I couldn't be the good dad. The boys I couldn't be I failed at everything.
Yeah.
And what happened is that egoic identity, it popped. Like it's kind of like a balloon. Like if you're in level 1, the victim mentality, you haven't blown up your ego yet. You don't think that you got any power yet. You're just like, and so it's like you're poking the balloon with a pin, but it's still intact. Mm-hmm. But level 2, like you blow the balloon up and like, look how powerful I am. Look how big I am. But then level 3, it's like pride cometh before a fall. Level 3, you can actually, the balloon gets popped. And so if you've ever read David Hawkins' Power versus Force, and he's got the frequency chart. So what I'm describing right now is like, victim mentality, level 1 is down here in the shame and the guilt and apathy. But then level 2, you start to get angry, you start to have your desires and then you move all up and you start to win and you get to the pride. But pride is the last negative frequency, the last consumer frequency before the fall. Well, the fall is the pop. And then you and then you pop out on the other side. I always say we fall into heaven through the floor of hell. And so,
Mm.
so you pop out on the other side, and what happened is now I was no longer imprisoned in my egoic identity. I no longer had to be anything. I was no longer loved for what I do. What I am is love, and I merged with everything for all of eternity. I had a full-on experience. What like in the Buddhism enlightenment experience, that's a level 3 experience where you merge with everything for all of eternity, and you're just free. Now you become formless love. So I started out as loveless form. I was a form without knowing what love is, completely feeling separate from love, trying to figure out how to get there. But the form disappeared, and now I was formless love. And that's what level 3 is all about. So it's really tapping into the spiritual aspect. And that's what when most people are spiritual, that's where they actually are, either are in level 3 or trying to get there.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So then in level 4, you start to put love back into form. So you start to form back up, but you bringing all of eternity with you. You're bringing the oneness with you into form. And so level 4, it's called value oriented. So level 3 is journey oriented. Level 1 is disoriented. You don't know where you're going. Level 2 is goal oriented. I know where I'm going. I just got to get there. Once I get these goals, then I'll finally be good enough. Well, level 3 is when you finally realize those are all dead ends. There's nothing out there. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path, and all you need is within you now. And so level 3 is when you find everything you're looking for, but you find it by you stop looking, because like level 1, you live in the past, which creates depression. Level 2, you live in the future, which creates anxiety. Level 3, you live in the present, which you receive the present of the present, the gift that it is, which brings peace. And so peace is present in every moment, but we don't go deep enough. We're looking on the surface of it, and nothing is as it appears to be. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. It's just a reflection back to us. So we're going to see lack out there as long as we feel lack in here. Mm-hmm. So all the lack goes away in level 3. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to get. Right. And so you're full of love. But it's not even full of love. It's like, that's all you are. There is no you anymore. It's just you've entered into the oneness. The level 4 is called value oriented, where you move back into form, but now you are valuable because you're not giving to get anymore. There's nothing that you're completely whole. There's nothing missing from you. And so you start to overflow value into this world. If somebody would have put a gun to my head while I was in level 2 and asked me and told me about these 5 levels and said, which level are you in? I would have swore to you I was in level 4. I would have swore I was doing this, everything I was for my family. I was giving it. I was just trying to give to my family. But what was really happening now, seeing from the higher perspective, what was really happening was that I didn't think that I deserved to have a family unless I did all those things. So it was really still about me getting love, me being worthy of love. It was never even about them. I thought it was, but it wasn't. It was just me trying to be good enough.
Function of the ego?
Yes, the whole ego, though. That's the function of it, because we leave what is real in the pursuit of what appears to be. When we're in our ego, we're doing things for our worthiness. When you get to level 4, you're doing things from your worthiness, because you know that you are love. In level 3, you are love, and love is infinite connection. There's no spot that love is not. You've remembered the infinite connection of all things. And then in level 4, now you have all the oneness in you, and so now it's like you're like the entire ocean in a drop. Like, so now you're the drop, but you've got the whole ocean in there, and now you start to overflow it into the world around you. But the problem and opportunity, the problem with level 4 is, again, you can't see the picture when you're inside of it. So in level 4, you're starting to like be
expand?
Back in the body. Well, it's the opposite. You're contracting again. Level 3 was infinite expansion. Right. So level 4, you're trying to package the infinite in a form, and it's like weird. You're trying to figure out how to get your bearings again in this new reality. Like, you're in the same world, but you're no longer of the world anymore. You're something different. And now you're not here. The world doesn't change you anymore. You're not conforming to the patterns of the world. You're being transformed by the renewing of your mind. So you're starting to it's like a brand new baby. Like, how do I function in this world? Because I can't do it that way anymore. And so, but you're you're like in this limited perspective because you're bringing all of the infinity in you, but you don't know how to deliver it. You're doing the best that you can, but here's a metaphor that shows that it reveals like the problem with level 4. So it's value. You're just giving. You're not giving to get. It's only because it's just like love pouring out of you. And so you'll see somebody over there on a cliff and you're like, oh, look, they're falling. I'm going to go over there and help this person. Not trying to get anything. It's just this is the right thing to do. And you just go over there and you pull the person back so they don't fall off the cliff. But then they're like, what did you just do? I'm like, I helped you. They're like, no, you didn't help me. I'm like, what do you mean? And they point down and they look and there's someone falling that they were trying to save, but you couldn't see that from your limited perspective. So you weren't doing anything wrong. You just had a limited perspective. So what starts to happen, and so level 5 is the not my will, but thine be done. It's a complete surrender. So you're sovereign, but now you're in this surrendered state to where it's the I and my Father are one. So it's like emerging. It's bringing heaven to earth, and there's the connection between the two, and you're a conduit for it. So you're not making any decisions at all. You're always just listening and then letting it come through you. So that was a long journey that we just took that actually creates a context for your original question. Where did this book come from? Right. And it came from level 5, and that was the journey to prepare for it to come out of me.
I feel like I've been dominating this conversation, Jackie. Do you want to jump in there?
Well, I was going to ask Jonathan how he went from that atheist to now searching and knowing about that spiritual source. Was that all just part of this get rid of the ego type journey and find something new? Or was there a moment in time when you realized that there was something big that you were thinking incorrectly about?
Yeah. So I was never intentionally trying to get rid of the ego. I was level 2, I was trying to grow. I didn't know it was an ego that I was growing, but that's what was growing until it popped. But when it popped, that's when I experienced the formless love, where I was beyond this world at that point. And like, oh, well, this world is actually nonsense, right? In a way, like it's, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So if nothing real can be threatened, meaning if it's not going to be here a billion years from now, that means it can be threatened. So it's temporal. So nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. So if it's not real, it doesn't even exist. Herein lies the peace of God. Why is that the peace of God? Because if it's not going to be here a billion years from now, then what are you worried about? Why are you trying to hold on to something? It's not even real in the first place. So it's a shift in orientation to where you actually start to perceive reality as it is, from the truth and from eternity instead of in time. So I was actually opened at that point once that happened, and now I could start to receive like spirituality. And so what I started doing though, after that, because now I'm coming back into form, I'm like, well, how do I translate what I've received into this world? And so I started in level 4, I started going to church. But like I was going to five every Sunday and 2 every Wednesday. I was always an all-in guy. When I was blackout drunk 6 nights a week, why was I blackout drunk every night? Because all in, right? So I'm all in spiritual now. And so I'm going to church every time I could possibly squeeze it in anywhere. But I was going to all different churches, and I started to I'm like, listen to this person talking, like, well, that's true. And I've got a highly trained bullshit spotter at this point, because back when I was an evangelist atheist. I wasn't just an atheist. It was my job to convince people God wasn't real. So I could call out some bullshit like nobody's business. And so now here I am, but this time I'm going back to church, and I'm not looking for what's wrong. I'm looking for what's right. I'm like, I'm not here to destroy stuff. I'm here to find gold. I'm here to receive gold, a way that I can put into form what it is that I just experienced. And so I would start to hear things, and so I go to church. I'm like, okay, that's true. Hey, that actually fits that fits my experience. Okay, yeah, I can package it in that, and starting to look for that. And so, but I'd go to one church. I'm like, okay, that's true. And I go to the other one, like, hey, that's true. And I go to another one, I'm like, and again, different religions. I'm like, wait a minute, you just said exactly what they said. And y'all hate each other. Why do you hate each other? And you're saying the same thing. And it just really started to open up to me, and I could start, there's metaphor, but a brilliant cut diamond has 57 facets, like 57 sides to it. But if you only see one facet, you don't even know you're looking at a diamond. Once you start to see more of the facets, you're like, oh, that's a diamond. And then you can start to fill in the gaps. And so that's what I started doing, was filling in the gaps. And until I got a way to actually, from inspiration to information, to put words to my experience. But it wasn't until like level 5 was when it was the full on experience. That's it. With how this happened, you want to hear the story on that one, on what how level 5 happened?
Sure.
Okay. So it's another wild one. So I was at church one day, and one of my friends, I used to be in a punk rock band called Lost in the Sauce, earned that name very but I had a friend who was in a reggae band called Modern Motion, and they used to always open for our band. And so one day I'm at church, after my whole crazy journey, and then I see the guy, his name's Augie, and he's like, hey, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm just going to church. He's like, me too. Like, now again, we were both atheists back last time we saw each other, and this had been years. And so he's like, hey, do you still play music? I'm like, no, I haven't really done that. He's like, well, maybe we should get together and play some music. He's like, I got a storage shed. So he went on the same journey as me, but he built the biggest taxi cab company in our city. I built a big real estate business. He built the biggest taxi cab company. But he was in level 2. He found there was nothing there. So then he was like, went into the spiritual path as well. So now we've gone on the same, different paths, but the same journey. And he's like, so I got the storage shed where I paint all my taxi cabs, but in there I've got a recording studio. Would you like to come over and let's play some music together? I'm like, well, sure. So we're sitting in the storage shed playing music. And then we're there for a couple hours. And then all of a sudden this guy is standing in the storage shed clapping. And like, we look up and he's like, hey, how's it going, y'all? And we're like, what are you doing here? We didn't, it's just this random stranger. So big redneck dude with curly hair and just talking all redneck. Yeah. I can't even say how he said it, but he's like, yeah, I've been here for 20 minutes. Y'all didn't even see me. I'm like, okay, well, cool. And he's like, that's great, y'all. And so my friend is like, well, I got to go. And I'm like, all right, well, I got to go too. But my friend leaves, but now I'm talking to this guy for just a few minutes. And then I give him my business card and it's got my phone number on it. And then the next day was my birthday, January 22nd, 2015. And I was in a meditation group. It was a Thursday. Every Thursday evening, I go to meditation. And I come out of meditation, and all of a sudden my phone rings. And I never answer the phone if I don't know the number. They'll leave a message or something, I can find out. But the phone, I come out of meditation on my birthday, the phone rings, and I hear a voice says, answer the call. I'm like, answer the call, whatever. I'm not going to answer it. Really? All right, let's do it. So I answer the call, and it's the dude that I just met in the storage shed, the big redneck dude. And he's like, oh God, something's come over me. Oh, God, I got to meet with you right now. I got to meet you right now because God's got a message for you. And I'm like, what? If God's got a message for me, he can come to me. He don't need to talk to some crazy redneck dude. But now remember, what kind of guy am I? I'm an all-in guy. So I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's go. Let's see what it. So where are you at? He says, well, I'm at Walmart parking lot. And I was 5 minutes away. I'm like, all right, I'll meet you there in 5 minutes. And so hang up the phone and I get in my Prius. I start driving over to Walmart. I call up my dad who lives in Kentucky. I'm in Florida. My dad lives in Kentucky. I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm heading to Walmart to meet this redneck guy that said he's got a message from God for me. And he's a big dude. I just met him last night. So there's a good chance this guy might be wearing my skin later. So if you never hear from me again, check the cameras at Walmart parking lot, because that's the last place I was. And I'm serious. Like there's at least a 50% chance that I'm gonna die where I'm going right here. And I'm ready for it. Let's go. Let's do this thing. I pull up, and this guy, he's got this little yellow truck, and there's the lights coming down over his car, like it's like angels coming down. Like, you gotta be kidding me. And I pull up, the passenger door's open, and I pull up, and he says, get in. I'm like, get in. He's like, get in. I'm like, all right, let's go. So I sit in the car, and he's in the truck. He says, shut the door. I'm like, shut the door? All right. I shut the door. He cranks up the engine and he starts rocking back and forth. And he starts speaking in tongues. Now I'd never been around that before. I'd never heard that yet. Like that was new to me. And he's like, oh, whatever the things he's doing, rocking back and forth. He puts the truck in gear, and he's rocking back and forth, speaking in tongues, and he starts driving. And then he says, God really loves you. God really loves you. And I'm like, I sure hope so, because I don't know what's about to happen right now. So I sit perfectly still. Now remember, I got a highly trained bullshit spotter, and I'm just waiting. I'm like, all right, he's gonna say one word. Something, and as soon as he does, and I'm ready. I'll hop out of. We might, because we're driving down the highway now, and I don't know where he's taking me. We're driving on the highway. We're going 55 miles an hour, but I'm ready. I'll jump out of this car if I got to. So I'm perfectly present, and I'm listening, and I'm like, well, how does he know that? I mean, at first it's like, yeah, that's true. That's true. Just like, the other, yep, that's true. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Wow, that's some deep wisdom. Wow, yeah, that's pretty deep. How's he do that? And then I started, I'm like, how's he know that? How's he know that? He starts talking about my parents, my childhood, my grandparents. Like he's talking about my past. Like there's no way that he could know this stuff. Like stuff that only I could know. And I'm like, how's he know that? Then he starts talking about my future. And one of the things that he says, in 3 days, God's going to come and ask for your life. And if you give it to him, he's going to give you favor, but you can never take credit for anything ever again. And so he drove me around for like 45 minutes and then he finally drops me off and leaves me. And so I call up, as soon as I get out of the car, I call up one of my friends. He's a real, real Christian guy. He teaches like Bible study. He kind of looks like Opie Taylor. And I'm like, real clean cut, good dude. And I'm like, all right, this guy, I can trust this guy. I'm going to find out what, and I call him, I'm like, hey man, what do you know about people speaking in tongues? He's like, oh yeah, that's all in the Bible. That's fine. I'm like, okay, what about prophecies? And he's like, oh yeah, prophecies, that's all fine. But the Bible does say a false prophet should be put to death. I'm like, wow, okay. And he's like, so this dude, he told you that in 3 days it's going to happen? And I'm like, yeah, it said 3 days. He's like, he put a date on it in 3 days? Like, well, this is easy. All you got to do in 3 days, either it happens and it's the real deal, or it doesn't happen. You need to get as far away you can get from that guy. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's easy. Well, then 3 days later, it happened. I had a full-on experience. God comes and asks for my life. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do with it? And now God doesn't give me an answer for that. So then I'm like, well, what's the worst case scenario? Like, if you're not going to tell me how can I say yes to something that you're not even telling me what it is? And so I'm like thinking like, what's worst case scenario? And, I went through all of it and everything. And I was like, but then at the end, I was like, you know what? Well, if this is God, and I know I'm going to die one day, this body's going to be gone. So if it's God and I'm going to be dead one day, that means God will have me one day. So why wait? Why wouldn't I just do it now? And I could not come up with a single logical reason why to not do it. And so I'm like, even not knowing what I'm saying yes to, I just knew I was saying, yeah, if this is God, I'm saying yes to God, but I don't know what he's going to say, what he's going to ask of me and use my life for. But I said, okay. And I sincerely meant it. And remember, I'm an all-in guy. So, and God knew I was an all-in guy. He knew that I was going to give everything. I was going to give my whole soul when I give it. And so I did. And I said yes. And in that moment, that's when the full journey happened, from the head to the heart. I dropped into the kingdom in an instant. I didn't know that I didn't know what love was until that moment. I didn't know what peace love was until that moment. I didn't know what joy was until that moment. And suddenly it was like, it just happened. Like it was like, I was now heaven on earth. They had merged inside of me. Oh. And from that moment forward, I've never, my job is just stay out of the way, just to not try to figure out what I'm supposed to do. Because see, I used to, in my old world, I used to play chess with life. I'm like, if I do that, then that'll happen. If I do that, that'll, and I'm always trying to figure out. From that moment forward, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no clue what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm just asking. I'm just following. And so I've just from then I've always just been given guidance. I've been given direction and been, shown what to do. And specifically, I was then given what this body was going to be used for here on earth. And again, this was January 25th, 2015. There was 3 specific things. 1, reinvent the educational system. 2, reinvent the monetary system, and 3, unite religions. And I was like, what? I can't do that. And God's like, of course you can't. That's the whole point. You got to stay out of my way. I'm going to do it. Just get out of my way and let me use you.
Oh.
And so then that's what's been happening ever since.
So you're on that journey now.
Yeah. And so we've actually done all 3 of them already. Now it's just time to scale it. We've already reinvented the educational system, already reinvented the monetary system. We have our own currency, a sovereign currency. It's in perfect timing. When God said reinvent the monetary system, I'm like, what? That's impossible. That's never going to happen. But then I was shown visions of everything that's happening today. I was shown it back then. I knew about the whole world was going to be shutting down and everything that was going to be happening. And there was going to be artificial intelligence being grown up, and then a central bank digital currency was going to be launched. And I saw the whole picture and what that was for, what the purpose of it was for. But I also saw that all the fiat currencies that were going to collapse, the dollar, all of them were going to go down. And so I'm like, oh, well, this is actually a lot easier than I thought. It would have been really difficult if I had to outperform the dollar, but the fact that the dollar is dying and collapsing completely, it makes it pretty simple. Yeah.
Wow.
My goodness, mister, we're going to have you back on the show because there's a lot more to talk about, I think.
We haven't even talked about the Echo Waking Village. Oh my gosh.
Well, one question I do have is the book's been out for a couple of years, right?
Yeah, it came out probably, I think, like 5-6 years, or probably 6 years ago, I think.
What do people say about it? You've obviously gotten some feedback. Give us just an instant quickly, because we're almost out of time here. But what are people saying about the book?
Oh, it's like it just completely transformed every aspect of their reality, because they can see where they are now. Because once they can see where they're at and they can see where they're going. I remember I've talked to like Academy Award winning artists, and when I share with them the 5 levels, they can see it like, oh my God, I was stuck in level 2. That's why now I get it. Now I know where I'm going. See, if Michael Jackson or Robin Williams or Whitney Houston or Elvis Presley could have got a hold of this book, they would be alive right now. They would have died because they would have known they were in level 2 and they thought that was the end of the game, and they won, but that wasn't the end of the game. That was just the beginning of their death. If they would have died before they died, they would have been fine. And that's why it's called If I Die Before I Wake.
Wow. And where can people find that book?
Go to findyourpurposebook.com and you can download it for free. You'll get the
it's free.
PDF
you can get
and
this
the
book
audio for free. Findyourpurposebook.com.
Cool. Jonathan, I want to thank you for showing up today. Jackie, any takeaways, or did you have a last minute question?
I don't have a last minute question, but Jonathan, I'm so happy you were here because your journey is amazing. And like Todd said, we got to have you back because there's way more to find out from you. But can we hear all of this in the book? Is the book going to give us this journey that you've had?
It'll give you all the way up until 6 years ago. So
right.
It's been quite a journey since then. But yeah, you'll get all that. That's plenty.
Is there another book coming?
Yeah, there's one coming. I don't know when it's in here. I don't know when it's coming out.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Thanks again, Jonathan, for showing up as you today. That was a fascinating conversation, and I'll get a hold of your advocate and we'll book you again and get some more information. That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope that you'll connect with Jonathan. I hope that you'll download his free book. Excuse me. And lastly, please, please, please make it a great day, because it is all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.